Okay, good morning. So this morning, I wanted to talk a little bit about the mind. So the mind is our best friend and sometimes our worst enemy. And in yoga, the idea with yoga is that it affects us on every level of our being. And the mind is one way that the practice has an impact on, or one aspect of ourselves that the practice has an impact on. Of course, it impacts the body, has an effect on the body, has an effect on the breath, right? And our breath actually has so much interconnection with what goes on in our mind and what goes on in our bodies. It also affects our emotions, right? We can come to the mat feeling one way and leave the mat feeling a completely different way, depending on how we focus our attention on the practice. So it can have an impact on the emotions. And then our deepest aspect, that part of ourselves that we can't sort of touch, feel, taste, that inner spirit or soul, you could call it, we're also working at that level through the practice. So from the sort of most outer, which is what brings people to yoga, is the body, right? People often come, oh, I have aches and pains, I want to do yoga to feel better in my body. And usually after some time, what people say to me is, I came for my body, but I stay for my mind, right? So the idea that what we do with our body also has an impact on our mind. And a lot of that has to do with how present we are when we do the practice, right? So we move our bodies, but if we do that while we're still in our heads, kind of circling around with those thoughts that create stress, keep us up at night, or whatever it is for you, then it's not really going to have such a good impact on our mind if we're still in that space. But if we can use the practice, if we slow down the movement, slow down our kind of awareness as we're practicing, then through the practice, we can really tune in and notice when we've slipped away with our minds and bring the attention back. So stress, a big part of what creates stress for us is our mind. So for instance, a friend of mine moved out west earlier in the season, and she's got 2 horses that she had a really horrible time trying to load into the trailer to move them out west. And then they had to be moved again from one place to another. And she spent the last month stressing so much about how hard it was going to be to get her horses on that trailer, and just going around and around and around and around. She loaded the horses up yesterday. In 10 minutes, they went. Absolutely no problem. And so all that time worrying and stressing and creating a lot of energy around that was really for nothing. So thankfully, her horses loaded and all was well. But we can really be our own worst enemies in how we create conditions in our mind for either ease or peace or stress. So today, as we go through the practice, I'll keep reminding you to notice what's going on in your mind. And it's not about eradicating thoughts. Thoughts are going to keep coming up all the time, and they can kind of run in the background. But when we bring our attention to them and we start kind of going down that road, the idea is to notice that, and to bring your attention back to whatever's happening in the moment. Feel your body, feel your breath. Those things really keep you anchored in the moment. Otherwise, we're just somewhere else doing something else. We're not really doing yoga at all. So I'll see you in a seat, whether that's sitting on the ground or on your chair, and we'll start from there. Just going to, there we go. All right. So, finding a comfortable seat and keeping your spine nice and long. So your weight is anchored evenly on your 2 sit bones, and you can kind of rock a bit side to side and connect with those sit bones. If you're on a really soft seat, you may not feel so much pressure on the 2 bones in the bottom of the pelvis. But if you're sitting on a firm cushion or on a chair, you may be able to feel those 2 points where your pelvis connects with your seat. You can close your eyes. We'll do a little check-in that goes through those levels or layers of our being, and kind of check in with how we're feeling on each of those levels this morning. So starting with your body, the most outward physical manifestation of ourselves. And tuning into your body sort of as a whole. You can imagine your body sitting in this space. And then let your attention wander around your body. So usually what happens is your attention gets pulled to where you feel pain or discomfort or something that's not quite right. So allow your mind just to go wherever you feel something a little bit maybe not quite perfect this morning, and just notice that. That brings your attention most readily. So notice any areas that may feel a little bit tense or tight, a little uncomfortable. And then once you find one of those spots, see if you can also find an area of your body that feels open, unrestricted, free. It may be the absence of sensation that you're aware of. And then go back and notice, is there anything else that might feel a little tight or uncomfortable? And then back over to, where do I feel freedom? So we're kind of going from one extreme to the other. And if there's nothing that brings your attention that feels a little uncomfortable or tight, celebrate, first of all, and simply notice what is present. So notice the pressure of your hands or your sit bones and anything else that you're aware of. So just take a moment to scan the body and notice, going from what feels maybe not so comfortable to what feels at ease, back and forth. And then see if you can be aware of your breath as it is. So the idea is to not work on changing the breath, to not judge the breath as being good or bad, but to simply be aware of the breath. Notice its movement, notice its path, be curious. Where do you feel the breath? Is it in the front of the body, the back of the body, both? Do you feel more movement in the chest, or perhaps in the belly, or maybe even movement in the shoulders? Again, take a moment to simply tune in and notice your breath as it is. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back every time you notice. And I invite you to tune into your mind, to the thoughts that are passing through your mind. And it's generally that we don't ever turn our minds off, contrary to what many people think of meditation, but we can take a step back from those thoughts. So you can just take a little step back from your thoughts and maybe watch them as though they're clouds going by or a movie playing outside of yourself. So the difference is we're just noticing the thoughts. We're not kind of connecting to them and following them along. Again, take a moment to just notice. And then the last part of our check-in, we'll look at how we're feeling this morning, what kind of mood we're bringing to the class, what emotions are present. And you might experience your emotions as feelings in your body, like tightness or heaviness. You might experience your emotions as thoughts. I don't feel so good today, or I feel great today. Just take a moment to be aware of whatever's present for you emotionally. And then we'll do a few clearing breaths as though we could clear the slate of all of that and start really fresh this morning. So our clearing breaths, you'll be lifting up. And then as if we're kind of clearing by bringing the hands down the front of the body as if clearing whatever's stuck, whatever's not necessary today, and you can just kind of wipe it or wash it off. So breathing in and then exhale, just kind of imagining you're letting whatever is not necessary to hold through the class, let that go. So whether that's discomfort physically or challenging thoughts or emotions. Almost like we're emptying ourselves and allowing the practice to fill us today. One more breath like that. And then coming to sit nice and tall. Tall but relaxed, so we don't want to be rigid. And then drawing the shoulders up, take a breath in. Roll the shoulders back and down. So you might notice, as I'm sure you're aware, we often coordinate the movement and the breath together, and that has a few purposes. So one is to just kind of link the body and breath together to make the movements more smooth, but probably the bigger reason is to help to bring the mind into action here. So if we're just doing the movements without allowing the mind or inviting the mind into the movements, the mind tends to go somewhere else. So if we're thinking about inhale, lift, exhale, roll back and down, it just gives the mind one more thing to connect to, less chance for it to go wandering off. And letting the arms hang down. So that said, actually, if it feels uncomfortable to coordinate with the breath, it's always better not to. So you should never be straining when you're doing that. Let's bring the hands onto the thighs now. And take a breath in and raise the arms. So your elbows are shoulder height or lower, hands just over the elbows, and draw back. Now let the chest come forward. And then exhale, hands back to the thighs. Inhale, opening, exhale, coming back. So the shoulder blades draw in and down, the elbows move down, hands move back, exhale, come down, maybe one or two more. Make the next one the last one. Right. And then for this one, we're going to give ourselves a big hug, alternating which arms are on top as we move. And the idea, again, whenever we're kind of tuned into our mind and our emotions, sometimes challenging stuff can come to the surface. And so to meet those challenges with as much self-love as possible. So those thoughts of I'm not doing this right or whatever it is, to bring self-love into that. So let's take the arms open wide, take a big breath in, and then exhale, cross the arms over your chest, round your back, let your head come down. And then inhale, open wide. We'll cross the other way this time. Exhale, giving yourself a big hug. For some of us, these are the only hugs that may have been available for the last several months or longer. Exhale. Try to meet whatever arises for you with as much empathy and compassion as possible. A couple more alternating. Okay, and then after this next one, just releasing the hands back onto your thighs. We'll do a little movement with that cat-cow here, inhaling, drawing the shoulders down and back as you lift the heart without throwing the head back. And then exhale, soften and round, let the head come down. Repeat that a few more times. Inhale, arching, exhale, rounding. And then coming back to a neutral spine, the inhale movement is the same. Inhale, lifting. This time exhaling, letting the body come over the legs. Let your head hang down, and then inhale, lifting back up, finding that arch. Exhale, forward, and really let your head go as long as that's okay with your neck. And then we're going to add next time lifting the arms as well. So as you lift up, taking the arms straight up or in whatever position is comfortable, and then back down as you come forward. Great. This time stay upright and bring one knee in toward your chest. Give it a squeeze in. You can round your back here and bring that knee right in close. And then we're going to keep a hold of the knee, but allow the spine to lift so you're sitting back up on your sit bones. You can hook your hands around your knee or under your thigh. And take a couple of breaths. Circle your ankle around one way and then the other. And then you can lean back in your chair or on the ground, round your back a little bit. See if it's possible to bring your ankle above the knee on the opposite thigh. If not, you might just stay here or bring the leg to the side and down to the ground. So if it's available to you to bring your ankle onto your thigh. Now if you're sitting on the floor, what you're going to want to do is bring the one foot onto the floor in front of you and the other ankle over top. Leaning back is going to help you get into that position, ideally without putting any pressure or torque on your knee or hip. And then from there, if you want a little more stretch, and most people will feel this in the outer hip of the leg that's up, you don't want to feel a pull in your knee. If you feel a pull in your knee, just come right out of this pose. So you can start to slowly sit yourself upright, letting this knee fall away from you. Now your knee may naturally be a little higher than mine, that's fine, but we want to think about letting it relax down and away. You can place your hand there, but I encourage you not to push your knee down. Or you can use your hands to support you from behind to keep your spine long. For those of you who are sitting upright and you don't feel much stretch here, you can always come forward a little bit. I find for most people that's not actually necessary. It's enough stretch just to be upright or even slouching back a little bit. And if it feels like a lot of stretch or tension in your leg, kind of roll back like you're doing a cat-cow and come up a little bit. So you're taking the stretch on and off a bit. Okay, let's come upright and release. Pause for a moment, maybe notice how one hip feels compared to the other. Really tune in and make sure that you're not pushing your body too far, and you might feel that as tenderness in the knee or the hips. Really honor your body. And if this is challenging for you, I invite you to really tune in and notice what stories your mind wants to tell you. And can you simply just be with the physical sensation, be with the challenge, whatever it is. So let's roll back again. So you're kind of leaning back. If you're on the ground, you can use your hands to support you. Bring the other knee up. And then sit up tall. Circle the ankle around. So you can do a few circles one way and then the other way. Right, and then to come into that position with the ankle over the knee, you're going to slump back again. Check in. This side may feel different from the other side, so don't assume that if you did it easily on the other side that the same experience will happen over here. So really tune in, notice your knee, notice your hip. If you want more stretch, you're going to sit yourself a little more upright. So when we roll back, the pelvis tilts back, more weight is on the tailbone. As we sit upright, the weight comes back to the sit bones. And again, you can place the hand on the knee, but don't push down, or you can use your hands to support lots of length in your spine. And if it feels right for you, you might go a little bit forward here. But again, not necessary Tune into your body and honor what you notice. Letting the knee relax toward the ground, not pushing. You can lean back a little to release. And then again, sit for a moment and notice. We'll take the feet a bit wider now, creating a nice solid base support. And then letting the body move towards one thigh, the other thigh, and back up again. So again, if you're sitting on the floor, you can be cross-legged, or you can have your feet on the ground in front of you or your legs stretched out. Do a few circles in each direction. Try to move really slowly, and again, let the mind be connected to the sensations in your body. So for instance, I notice that I don't feel too much stretch when I'm going across the back or the front, but when I get to the sides of the circle, I feel some pull in the hips, some stretch and movement in the hips on the opposite, hip on the opposite side. So you might notice something similar, you might notice something quite different in your body. Right, and then let's come back to the center. You can place your feet wherever they're comfortable for you. Take your hands, interlace your fingers now. And gently press your palms down and away to feel a bit of stretch in the hands and the wrists. Keep your shoulders down if possible. And then turn your hands back over so the palms are together. You're going to uninterlace your fingers and interlace them with the opposite finger on top. So if your right index finger was forward last time, have your left index forward this time. And same thing, you're going to stretch out the hands. It might feel a little bit strange. We tend to always interlock the fingers the same way. Right, and then come back and let's press the palms together. Send the heels of the hands towards your thighs or toward the ground, shoulders down. And then release that pressure. Gently press the backs of the hands together, elbows down slightly. Be really gentle with this one, don't overdo it. And then do a few circles. Circling one way and the other. Great, and then give the hands a shake. And shake right from the shoulders out through the hands a few times. Really feel like you're letting go. All those thoughts that congregate up here, imagine them just being shaken off through your arms and hands. And then let the hands hang there, arms hang. Close your eyes for a moment. Tune in. Maybe notice the sensations in your hands and arms. Tune into your breath again. Just noticing it as it is. And always inviting the mind back to the party that's happening now. If the mind wants to have its own private party somewhere else, and we're inviting it back here to this moment every time we notice that it's skipped off somewhere else. Okay, so we're going to come to stand now, and you'll probably want to have a surface like a chair, or it could be a counter or a couch to bring your hands to, so we can work a little bit with a forward bend from standing. So if you've been on a chair, you'll just turn the chair so that it's facing you. And you want to be about a foot or so back from your chair so that when you bring your hands onto the chair, as we'll do in a moment, your hands will be under your shoulders, feet more or less under the hips. So you can take a breath in and reach up. And then bend your knees, come forward. If you're using a chair, I like to take my hands around the outside of the chair. I find that easier on my wrists than forward, especially if it's a soft surface. So it's more comfortable to have your hands forward on a hard surface, and I find it most comfortable either way to have my hands on either side. So if you're on a soft surface like a couch or a bed, just really honor your wrists, because when they sink in, can create more of an angle here and a little bit more tension on the wrists. So you want to have more or less your hips over your heels, hands under the shoulders, knees bent, and we're going to lift the chest, lift the tail. As you do this, you might feel some stretch up in the back of the legs, and that's appropriate here. And then from here, round your back, tuck your chin in, come into the cat position. So soft elbows, you don't want to lock your arms here. So finding that little bit of hamstring stretch by lifting and then rounding. If you want to coordinate your breathing, inhale as you lift. Exhale as you round. And then find a neutral. So somewhere between arched and rounded, there's a neutral spine. It'll have a little bit of a natural arch, most likely, as that's the natural curve of our spine. And then you can take one knee and bring it up toward your chest, and that's going to round your back a little bit. And then you can take that same leg and stretch it back behind you. So bring it in. You can imagine your nose and knees coming together, and then a little lift as you stretch back. So draw in. If you get tired, you can switch sides sooner and kind of go back and forth so you don't overdo it on one side, or you can do a few more on this side as I am and then switch. Coordinating the breath, you'd exhale in, inhale out. If you want to work a little bit more on strength here, and this is totally optional, you'll stretch the leg back and stay for a few breaths. Try to keep your standing leg a little bit bent. Your toes of the stretched out leg point down at the ground. Great, and then let's release. Bend both knees, lift all the way up, breathing in, exhale, and release. And take a moment again to notice maybe how your body feels one side to the other. If it was challenging for you, maybe notice what stories wanted to come up about that challenge for you. We're not trying to change our minds, right? We're just trying to really be with ourselves, really notice. Bring our attention back to the moment as much as possible, but not out of judgment, right? Not out of what I was doing isn't okay, but what I'm trying to do here to bring my attention back is going to serve me best in the long run. Let's try the other side. So inhale and lift. Exhale into that forward bend. Again, make sure that your wrists and elbows, shoulders are in a comfortable position, ideally kind of lined right up over each other. And we'll do a few cat-cow movements. So the more you bend your knees as you come into the cow or arch position, the less stretch you'll feel in the back of the legs. So you can find a position that's just right for you, and then work with the exhale to round, inhale to arch. And then let's find a neutral spine again. And you can bring the knee in towards your nose, round your back, and then stretch out. Now your leg could be high like mine is, about parallel to the ground. It could be lower, it could even be on the ground. So we're gonna breathe in. If you're coordinating breath, inhale as you stretch out, exhale as you draw in. Again, if you want to switch sides or take a break at any time, feel free to do that. And if you want to challenge yourself a little more and it feels like you can do that without creating strain or stress, stay with the one side a couple more times. And then again, you have the option if you want and it feels right for you to stay. So that back foot is rotating in right from the hip so that the knee and the toes are pointing toward the ground. There's a tendency to roll out here. See if you can find that inward rotation. And then when you're ready, you can slowly lower, bend the knees, inhale and lift up. And exhale to release down. You can take your feet a little bit apart here. Maybe let the hands come rest on the hips. And we'll do a few circles. Again, move slowly and try to tune in. What do you notice? How does it feel when I come across the front? How does it feel when I go to the right? How does it feel in the back of that circle and then the left? And if you move slowly, you'll notice that there's slightly different sensations all around that circle. And it might feel really different in one hip than the other. Maybe you need to make your circles a little smaller to be comfortable. Maybe you want to make them a little bit bigger to feel more sensation, more stretch. I've been going each direction so you can switch, go both ways, maybe a few circles one way, a few the other way. Maybe tune in. And then come back to the center. Just a little side to side. Soft knees, hips going one way, hips going the other. See if you can keep your head more or less over your navel. Okay. So my navel and my head kind of stay, and my hips are moving. And if that's not what happens for you, don't worry about it. It's sort of as opposed to kind of going way over to one side and the other. So we're just letting the hips go while we keep the head over the navel. Right? And come back to the center and just shake, gently shake it out. But you may want to have some support for this one. It's not strictly necessary for sure for everyone, but you may want that support. So if you have a chair or a wall, you can use that for balance. I'm going to turn to face the chair, and I'm going to have 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. Bend both knees to feel a stretch in the back ankle. You could also do this with the chair to your side. And then we're going to step a little further back with the back foot. And that back foot pointing forward in the same direction as the other foot and pressing the heel toward the ground. And so now looking for a bit of stretch in the back calf, a little higher up than the ankle, just below the knee in that area. And then try lifting and lowering that back heel a few times. Engaging and stretching the calf. So getting a little stretch into the arch of the foot. Right. And then you can leave that back heel down and we'll bend and straighten the front leg. Great. Now here with the front leg, I would say just a little bent. If you want a bit more stretch, you can come forward, bringing your hands onto your front knee. Maybe resting on the top of your chair, or it depends what you've got handy there. But we're looking for just a little more stretch in that front leg. So finding that in whatever way is suitable for you. And then we're going to lift upright, step the feet back together, and take a moment again to notice the difference between one side and the other. And then we'll do the other side. So whichever foot was forward, we'll be back now. Start with a small step, bend both knees. And again, we're looking to receive and feel stretch in the back, ankle. Make sure you're breathing. There's no particular way that you should be breathing here, but do keep breathing. Great. And then you can take that back leg and step it further back. So front knee will be bent, back leg straight, and the heel near or on the ground. So it doesn't have to be on the ground. You can be reaching toward the ground. And if you don't feel any stretch and you've stepped back, try stepping back a little further and see if that gives you stretch that you want. And then we can lift up and come back down. So lifting up onto the toes and sending the heel back down. Right. And then you can try bending and straightening the front leg. You want to keep your chest lifted here. And then if you want a little more stretch, you can either take the hands to your slightly bent front knee to come forward more. You can come down and rest on your chair. Whatever position gives you just the right amount of stretch in the back of that front leg. And then you can maybe find just the right amount of straightening to feel really good in this stretch. And then we'll come back upright, coming to stand on both feet with your feet underneath your hips. Bend and straighten both legs now. So you'll feel your ankles and calves a little bit here. Great, and then we're going to add on. So as we bend and straighten, as we bend, we're going to reach down and then straighten. Reach the shoulders around and back. So we bend down and around, down and around. Great. One more time, and then we're going to change it up. So now as we come down, we're going to lift the arms, big circle around, and again, come down, lift, and big circle around. Great. And let's release the arms down to the sides. And pause for a moment and simply notice what's present for you right now. So we started by checking in physically, noticing the body. So coming back to that physical noticing. Feel your breath. It may be a little bit faster now after we've done a bit of movement. And then tuning into what's going on in your mind right now. What are you aware of? Great. And then keeping that inward kind of focus, really tuned into ourselves, we're going to come to lie down on the mat. So you can move your chair out of the way if you've been using a chair. And you'll come right down to lie down on your back on the mat. You could start with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. Let your hands come and rest on your body, and we'll take a moment just to settle here and to feel the breath. And let's bring the knees up in toward the chest, and you can bring one hand to each knee. And then straighten your arms to move the knees away from you. And then as you exhale, bend your elbows and draw the knees in towards you. So you're inhaling the knees away, exhaling knees in. And then holding the knees in whatever way is comfortable for you. So it might be over your knees. For you, it might be under your knees if that's a more comfortable position for the knees themselves. And take a few breaths here. You might start to gently, slowly rock side to massage the muscles that support your spine, massaging the back of your hips and pelvis. Maybe adding a few circles here. And as you're circling, see if you can really tune into where the pattern is on the back of your body along the ground. So really notice, where do I feel the pressure, and when and how does it change as I move? And then if you try circling the other way, notice the same thing. It's not that it's so fascinating to feel this movement, but it really helps to bring the mind into the equation and keep it from wandering off into the stratosphere somewhere else. So really tuning in, noticing. And the other benefit of that is that when we're disconnected, when we're not paying attention to what we're feeling as we're moving, it's easier to injure ourselves by going too far because we're not paying attention. We'll gradually hug the knees in one more time. And then stretching the legs up toward the ceiling. And if it's more comfortable to you to do this one leg at a time, that's fine. We'll circle the ankle or ankles and wrists. And if you've chosen to do one leg at a time, at some point you'll switch and do the other leg. So you might find it's just a little easier on your lower back to keep one leg down to support. And then give everything a little shake out. Great. And then bring the knees back in and let the feet come to the floor. So we're going to keep the feet on the floor in this position as you stretch your arms up toward the ceiling and reach up so you feel your shoulder blades lift away from the ground. Take a big breath in and then exhale and slowly let the shoulder blades sink down. And then take your hands to your opposite elbows. So you've got a little square over your chest. And then we'll take the head and the elbows, move them down to one side, back to the center, and over to the other side. And then again, I encourage you to really tune in and notice, where do I feel this stretch? What's moving? Is it getting into areas of my body that feel tight, or does it feel really easeful and smooth the whole way? And we're not, again, looking for a right or wrong or any particular answer. We're just using the body to help bring the mind into focus. Using the sensations to support our attention. Right. Let's come back to the center and we'll release the arms to the sides. You can have them shoulder height or a little bit lower. And we'll work with the twist for the lower body now. So knees going one way. If you like, you can turn the head the opposite direction. And then coming back to the center. Switching sides. You exhale as you go one way. Inhale as you come to the center. Again, only if you're choosing to coordinate the breath and that feels comfortable for you. Otherwise, you'll just breathe and move at a pace that feels right. Again, tune in. What do you notice? What do you feel? Where do you feel the twist now? Does it feel different from the upper body twist we did a moment ago? You can do a few more like this. if it feels good for you, or if you want to combine those two twists, you can come back to the center, take your elbows again, and as your knees go one way, let your elbows and your head go the other way. So that's going to be a more intensive twist, so only if that feels right for you. Otherwise, choosing just one or the other of those two movements. Right, and then let's come back to the center, release from the twist. Again, we'll bring the knees into the chest. And you can repeat this forward and back movement we did earlier if that felt good to you, or if you want a little bit more now, you can stretch the legs up. Arms can go either over your head or out to the sides, and then back into the body. So you're inhaling and stretching out. Exhaling and drawing in. Or just moving the knees away as you inhale and exhale back in. Right, and then with your knees to your chest, switching both hands to one side, either above or below the knee. Stretch the other leg straight out on the ground, toes to the ceiling, leg active. So if someone were to come along and try to move your leg, they'd have a hard time because it's really strong and connected here. Right. If you feel comfortable in your lower back and feel nicely engaged in the abdomen here, you might even lift the leg an inch off the floor, but really check in. Am I now creating tension in my shoulders, neck, jaw, and face? Or can I keep that concentrated in the abdominal area? Does it strain the lower back? If so, lower the leg anytime. Can you breathe? If not, lower the leg. And then let's switch sides. So bringing the other knee in, stretch the other leg out. Again, let's start with the leg on the floor. Heel pressing away, toes pointing up. And then, again, check in. You want to engage the core if you're choosing to lift that leg. You want to keep your shoulders, neck, and face relaxed. Maybe lift an inch off the ground. And then really check in. Am I creating tension or just using effort? Right, there's a difference. And then let's bring both knees in. Again, give a little squeeze. And then both feet release to the floor. You stretch both legs out. And if it's comfortable for you, taking the arms overhead, or it could be out to the sides, or bending the elbows, reaching out wherever you are, from your fingers, tips to your toes, to your heels. Take a few breaths here. Right. And then wherever your arms are, bring them down to your sides. Press your palms down into the ground. Feel your arms engage. Press your heels down into the ground. Feel your legs engage. And again, if you can do this without straining, and it feels good to you, you're going to press a little more into your heels and imagine, and maybe even lift your hips. Not even lifting them off the ground, but just lightening the pressure on the back of the hips. And then release. Let your legs relax for a moment. You can turn the palms up now. Let your arms relax for a moment. Just take a moment here to tune in and notice your body again. Notice what's present. If this position isn't comfortable for you, feel free to change positions. We will move into Shavasana in a moment, and I'll give you an opportunity to get any props you might need. But for now, just tuning in, checking in, noticing your body, noticing what draws your attention. So just like at the beginning of the class, if something draws your attention and it feels uncomfortable, feels tight, doesn't feel good, then notice that, absolutely, but shift your attention and find something that does feel good, that does feel open and relaxed. So I'll give you a minute or two to just follow your attention around your body and notice what's there. Okay, and then we're going to let that go. And I'll invite you to find a position that's comfortable for you for Shavasana. If you're already in that position, go ahead and stay where you are. If you want to add a blanket or maybe a bolster to bring under your knees or a pillow for your head, just to really make sure you're comfortable. If you prefer to sit, by all means, go ahead. Just finding that position that's going to be the most comfortable for you, where you can relax for a few minutes and not feel distracted by your body. You just spent a moment tuning into the body as you come into whatever position. If you've changed positions, you'll start by, again, tuning into your breath. If you're not trying to change the breath in any way, simply tuning in and noticing the breath as it is. See if you can put a little bit more emphasis now on your exhalation. And a feeling of a letting go now with your exhalation. A feeling that as you let the breath go, your body lets go a little as well. When we give the mind something to focus on, like the breath, we're inviting it into the present moment. And whenever you notice that your mind has wandered off somewhere else, you'll invite it back again to this moment by bringing your attention to the breath. Exhale, sink down. Notice your jaw and any holding or tension that you might be aware of in your jaw. And see if you can find just a little bit of softening there. Maybe separate the surfaces of your teeth. Relax the muscles of your tongue and throat. Relax all around your eyes and even the skin of your scalp as you allow the weight of your head to sink down. The muscles of your neck relaxing a little more. Your shoulders and arms release and sink down, the hands letting go. Feel your breath moving through your torso, and with each exhalation, continue to feel that sense of dropping down into the earth and letting go. Let the breath move freely without restriction. Soften the muscles around your belly and lower back. And allow the weight of your pelvis to heavily rest into the ground, letting go of all the muscles around your buttocks, lower abdomen, hips. Your thighs, knees, calves, and ankles, letting go. Your feet and even your toes could perhaps release and relax just a little bit more. Feel your whole body gently expanding to receive each in-breath and gently relaxing to let go of each out-breath. When your mind wanders, invite it back to the breath. According to the Yoga Sutras, the main goal of yoga is to bring the mind into this kind of focus where the body, the breath, the mind, and emotions are on the same path. And as our chant for today, I'll repeat this sutra. It's short and simple, literally says that yoga is bringing the mind into this one-pointed focus, into focus. Yogascitta vritti nirodhaha. 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 And when we bring the mind to that focus, the result over time is that we come to a place of greater peace and ease in our minds, our bodies, and our hearts. So take a moment to notice how you're feeling now, and please welcome whatever you notice. So if you feel agitated, welcome that. If you feel anxious, welcome that. If you feel relaxed and open, welcome that. If you feel annoyed or bored, welcome that. So whatever is present, see if you can open yourself to welcome whatever it is without judgment. And in this way, we begin to make friends with our minds, make friends with our hearts and our emotions. And if your mind has wandered all over the place this class and you felt like, gosh, I'm just not doing this right, just bring so much self-love and compassion as we start to deepen the breath and prepare to come back into the world. And as always, if you want to spend a bit more time in Shavasana, you can just ignore me for the rest of this class. And if you're ready to move on with your day, start to deepen your breath, add a little movement. Eventually, you can roll onto your side and take your time there, coming back to sitting as you're ready. So bringing the mind into focus is not about stopping the mind from thinking. It's about being present with whatever is going on in that moment, noticing when your mind goes elsewhere, because it will, that's life, and gently but continuously urging it to come back. And just a word of warning is that when you start to do this kind of a practice, it can feel like your mind is really, really busy at first, right? Because you're not used to bringing so much attention to your thoughts. Know that that's normal, and that with practice and over time, the mind starts to get on board and will kind of stay a little more focused for longer periods of time. And by longer periods, I mean like 1 or 2 seconds instead of a split second. So, oh yeah, so we'll close our class by bringing the hands together. My mind was already on to the next thing, so coming back to this moment. Again, taking a nice full breath, exhaling completely, making a commitment if it feels right for you to take this theme into your day and be as present as possible with whatever you're doing. Namaste. Have a great day, everybody.